Good afternoon. We're going to start. This is a closed session. So we're going to close the door at the back. And then we're going to start. But my name is Colin Christians. I'm chairperson of SCOPA. And next to me is Mr. Dustin Davids. I'm going to give the members opportunity to introduce themselves for record purposes, and then to the AG and the auditor committee. And then, oh yes, I mustn't forget the members online. So when I'm done with the members present, and we'll do the members online. So members, over to you. You must take this complaint yesterday. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, and good afternoon to the professionals. I'm Memory Boyson, and I'm an alternate member.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Noko Masipa. I'm an alternate member on this committee. I'm standing in for Honorable French Mbombo. Thank you, Chair.
Good afternoon. I'm Thomas Walters. I'm standing in for Member Van Minnen.
Good afternoon. I'm Peter Johnson, permanent member of SCOPA.
Good afternoon. My name is Gideon Bosman, and I'm an alternate for Member Leon van Wyk.
Sure, thank you.
Good afternoon, Ignatius Fourie. I'm the Senior Manager from the Auditor General of South Africa, responsible for the Department of Premier's Audit.
Good afternoon, honorable members, Chair. My name is Thomas Mamokwe, and I'm the Deputy Business Unit Leader for the Western Cape Business Unit AGSA.
Good afternoon, Chair and the members. I'm Ngabakazi Mlobeli, the Audit Manager at the HSA.
Good afternoon. My name is Sepo Mutlomi, Auditor General Office. Thank you.
Afternoon, Chairperson and honourable members. My name is Andrew Davids, and I'm the Audit Committee Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Uri. We're going to hand over to the AG's office. Oh, online, sorry, online. Online members.
Good afternoon, Chair and colleagues. I'm Basil Petrus.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, colleagues, and the officials present. My name is Pat Lecker.
Thank you very much. Is that everybody online? Yeah. Thank you very much. Over yes.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. My name is Smart Collins. I'm a member of the Audit Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's everybody. Member Lecker, you got your hand up? Member Lecker?
No, actually, I was going to ask if I may introduce myself, so I just need to lower it down.
Thank you very much. Over to you, AG.
strategy, just to make sure that we've got a follow-up coffee set up. Good afternoon. I'm Gillian Bosman. I'm standing in for the Honourable Leon van Wyk.
Thank you very much, members. Premier and HOD, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much to the honourable members. Alan Windy, Premier.
Chair, good afternoon. My name is Harry Malila. I'm the Director General in the province, as well as the Accounting Officer for the Department of Premier.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. I'm Driekus Basson. I'm the CFO.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Zinit Ismail, and I'm the Program Manager for Provincial Strategic Management. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Buter. I'm from Legal Services.
Afternoon, Chairperson and members. Henriette Robson, Corporate Assurance.
Good afternoon. Ihsan Samai, Centre for Innovation.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. My name is Robert Shaw, and I'm in the office of the DG. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Elmo Geldenhuys from our Directorate Departmental Strategy.
Afternoon, everyone. I'm Mario now, and I'm from Department of the Premier in the Finance section. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kimal Jackson, Supply Chain Management.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nadia Kara, Finance.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Ritvan van der Rensburg, Provincial Forensic Services.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. Letitia Isaacs, Organisation Development.
Good afternoon, Louise Estreiser, People Management.
Good afternoon, Phumzile Mope, People Training and Empowerment.
Good afternoon, I'm Vishnu Ramchand, Corporate Assurance IT Audit. Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Mabalo Akiani, Internal Audit. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Alvi Lester, Special Advisor to the Premier.
Afternoon, Chair and members. Tony Taverna-Turazan, Chief of Staff to the Premier.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introductions. Members, before I give the Premier and the HOD opportunity just to do introductory remarks, I allow each member 2 questions, initial questions to ask, and second round there will be a follow-up. I take 3 members at a time because I give enough time for the department to answer, and you must please give me the page number when you ask the question. It makes it much easier. So if we can do that, then I'm happy to proceed. Premier and HOD, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. It is always a pleasure to appear before SCOPA, especially when you have an audit outcome like we've got. And maybe I want to say that, you know, this department specifically plays a very important role when it comes to good governance, leading from the front, and not only with our own financial management and audit outcomes, we also play a role across the board. So I want to recognize the team for that, and specifically the DG, you know, because working with the AG, we make commitments to the AG. And it's across the board, whether it's at local government or across the province. And, you know, I'm really happy that we managed to achieve across the board unqualified audits for all entities and departments. And it takes a lot of work, but I've always said that good governance becomes a habit so that we can actually get to doing the work that we need to do. And, you know, you want it to be a habit. Of course, every now and again, you might have to come back and drill into something that gets raised. And specifically, they also recognize internal audit and the role that they play in helping us. But most of all, to the team that really, it is about habits. It's about ethics. It's about the way you do things. It's about making sure that you are always doing the right thing. And then it becomes so much easier to get to these outcomes. So, yeah, proud of what we've managed to achieve. Obviously, I'm sure there'll be one or two questions, but in general, across the board, and especially when it comes to fruitless and wasteful and unauthorized and that kind of thing. I mean, we just are showing the way as the Department of the Premier, because we need to, if you want everyone else to play their part in this government. So I must also use this opportunity to give recognition to the team. Eugene, you can deal with some of the detail.
No, thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon. Also, thank you to the members and also to those online and also to my own team. We've appeared this morning in front of the Standing Committee and provided the Standing Committee, with my report as the accounting officer that's set out in page 8 and page 9 up until page 15. This session obviously deals with some of the financial and governance information. I'm glad to report that we have no issues under the revenue component. Under the expenditure component, out of a budget of just over 2.1 billion, we've managed to spend 98.5% of our budget. From a performance management perspective, we've achieved 95.45% of our performance indicators. As the Premier has indicated, we've got no cases of fruitless and wasteful expenditure that's been confirmed during this year. We've got no cases of irregular expenditure, and the general state of our governance in this department is really good. The Premier emphasised the fact that our role is broadly across government, although we also take responsibility for our vote from an accountability perspective. But our role is really to lead and to guide and to enable the entire government system. So whether it's performance, financial, non-financial, whether it is governance and our engagement, with the different government leaders, we play that role across all the different programs, and you will hear today, how that landed up in some of our financial information. We are continuously improving. We're building systems, particularly within the supply chain environment. There are really no issues around compliance, issues around risk. All of those are really minimized. We've got a very active and engaging GovCom in the department. You can see that from the report from the audit committee as well as our own internal reports. And as Premier said, when we engage with AG, we do that with respect, because we also engage with them across the entire government system. In relation to obviously what's happening in the entire system, Chair, we're also sort of stepping up and making sure that obviously across the system, there's full conformance to all laws, regulations, and the delivery agenda. And for the year ahead, and even this year, we're really building on achieving the impact of the spend. And this department will do what we need to do to make sure that those things actually happen. So, Chair, I'm quite satisfied with the performance of this department for 24-25. Obviously, that performance happens in the system. There's a team behind it, and I'm really quite excited about the work that we've achieved. There's a lot still to be done, particularly over the next 4 years or so. But in terms of our own departmental performance, I mean, I'm satisfied with the quality of the financials, the outcome of the audit. Once again, a clean audit outcome with no real issues in the vote. And then, as it's indicated now, also from looking at through a governance lens, there are no real issues. So, Chair, we stand ready to respond to the relevant sections in our annual report. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Premier and HOD. Members, we're going to do section C and then ask for questions, and then section E and then section F. So members, over to you. Is there any questions on governance? Section C. See one hand, Member Boyson. Member Boyson, is there any other hands? Member Boyson, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, firstly, we applaud the department in their achievement. It is not an easy feat. We know that. Chairperson, my question is based on page 134, and that has got to do with the under expenditure. We know that it could have been worse in other parts of the country. They talk about unaccounted millions, and in this case, the millions are accounted for, but it's been underspent. My question is, Chairperson, is that because of over projection, or what would be the reason for some of the underspending? Thank you, Chair.
No other questions? HOD, over to you.
Chair, in aggregate, our total budget is just over 2 billion rand, as I've indicated. We have spent basically we've underspent by an amount of 30.6 million for the year. That's primarily in program 2. The amount in program 2 amounts to about 14 million. Most of those projects relates to projects within the energy space. I mean, always here to respond to some of those things. It's really just, we found ourselves some difficulty with recruiting people, particularly within that space. You advertise for 10 people to do some work in the energy space, and then maybe just you have 1 or 2 people that really understands how the system actually works. And then we've got minor under expenditure within the CI environment, amount of about 3.6 million rand, and then a small amount within the corporate environment space. But primarily, it relates to a slower than anticipated filling of posts, because obviously, Member Boyson, you can realize, when you've worked in the municipal space, you can never budget perfectly to the cent for people, because you don't know when people are going to exit the system and when people's going to enter. So basically, our underspending relates to some in personnel and some of the key projects, but none of these have really impacted on our overall achievement within the department. So that's generally where the underspending comes from.
Can I just say that, obviously, and it really comes home, we had a session with KZN where we had the whole of the KZN cabinet and their heads of department and our cabinet, our departments, and we're trying to work more together. There are things that we can learn from each other as we try to do our best for our citizens in respective provinces, but how can we learn from each other? And the one area is in finances. We don't dump money at the end of the year to try and get to a percentage, and we don't have accruals. We manage very, very tightly. And that's one thing that this team can be super proud of, is that we manage that down to such a fine point, but without having to, manipulate the system. And so we must also bear that in mind. You might see it as an underspend, but in actual fact, in real terms, it is like a shot in the bullseye. It's like such an achievement in getting to this stage without, messing around with other stuff. So yeah, it might not, people might say that is 100% the right spend. Well, I don't know. I don't think so. I think, making sure that you're spending on the right thing and you actually getting planned. And sure, there are some unplanned stuff, but it's not an issue because there is such strong management. Making sure right down to daily payments at the end of the year.
Yeah, maybe just to put perspective to that, I mean, Premier is 100% correct. I mean, there is a National Treasury benchmark on, let's call it appropriate or understandable levels of under expenditure, and that sits at about 2%. That obviously allows the system to move. So any department that underspends, anything below 2% is actually a very, very smart indicator of your levels of compliance. You can just imagine, if a salary goes through whatever, and you're right there on the margin, then you sit with unauthorized expenditure, and obviously you do not want to get yourself into that. So in this department's case, we've our underspending equates to 1.5%, and 2 of those components we've already requested rollovers in the Microsoft space, and also obviously some of the expenditure that's been voted by this Parliament for the Commission for Children will also go back into that space. So overall, from an under expenditure level, I think I'm satisfied with the levels that we've achieved this year. And I mean, there's continuous improvement in the space. It's something that we watch every month and also on an annual basis.
Member Pat Lecker, I see you online. You can pose your question, and then Member Basil Petrus after that.
Thank you, Chair. Let me greet once again. I'm just trying to check, Chairperson, in terms of the performance indicators versus the measurable public value. I want to check whether the department has, in that regard, maybe conducted a survey to make an assessment as to whether these indicators, as well as the performance indicators, are in a position where we can say they are improving and getting a responsiveness to the citizens of the Western Cape. And then, because
excuse me,
if you
member,
look at
before you continue, give me the page number so that we know where we are. There's more than one indicator, so just ask which indicator and which page, please.
this question, Chair, maybe I should have made a preamble. This question arises from the information that we received earlier on when we met with the AG and the internal audit group, where we were informed that there has been actions, 32 actions that were achieved in terms of the performance indicators. I'm sure you would remember that all of those 32
sorry. Remember, the department were not in that meeting. So you will have to take it from the start to say which indicator, what you're referring to, and which page, because they don't know. Member Lekker, please help us.
Okay. All right, Chair. Allow me to go back to the notes that were shared by the AG. If you're looking at slide, that was slide number...
Member Lekker, it's not slides, it's page 68 and 69 that we were referring to. So it's page 68 and 69 that we spoke about. You can't go to slides, you must go to the book. Thank you.
No, Chair, that must be linked to what we received, the information that we received under the SCOPA briefing notes, which first talked to page 68 to 69, where we were told 75% of those targets were achieved and 25 were not, highlighted in green and pink, and referencing to the page, which is 68 to 69. That's what I'm referring to. Because those two are interlinked, the book as well as those slides. Hence, I'm asking.
We agree. You're helping us because you remember they don't have the briefing notes. So that's why we took them to 68 and 69. And then you must just give us the indicator of what you're talking about. Just go to the book. Just take your notes and you go to the book, Member Lekker, to help the department.
I will be going there, Chair. So I just wanted to note that whilst I'm going to the book, and I'll come back to you. And then the last, Chair, question that I want to check on is on the plausibility, because initially we received information on the professionalization. Can the Premier at least take us through as to when exactly are we expecting these to be aligned? Thank you. I'll come back and give you the page, Chair. I'm just going through my book and my notes at the same time.
Yeah, Member Lekker, you're talking about the slide and slide 10 that we discussed with, but not the Premier or the Director General will be able to answer that. Member Bosman was zooming out in that, and Member Bosman, your hand is up.
Sorry, Chair, I was just going to give Member Lekker an opportunity to find the page numbers, and I wanted to just ask whether I could come in and ask my questions while Member Lekker regroups and find the page.
No, you go ahead, then I'll go back to Member Lekker. You go ahead, Member.
Thanks, Chair. I'm a little bit lost in terms of which pages we are on, but my question relates to pages 112, 113.
Governance. We're on governance, part C, governance. We're doing that at the moment. So we're not moving out of governance. We're only doing governance at the moment. And that is from page 116 to 147 governance. So that is where we are, Member Bosman.
So just for clarity, we must ignore everything else in the annual report and only focus on the contents of those pages.
Correct. We will then move to the next one and the next one. That is how we do it here, Member.
Unfortunately, I can't do that, so I'll hold my question for a
Thank you very much.
meeting.
Member Petrus?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Page 121, and in relation to the risks, it's mentioned there, Chairperson. What are we going to do about the risk, and are there any improvement to counter that?
Member Petrus, help us. What are you referring to? Which risk are you referring to on page 121? 121, you got risk. 121. Which risk are you referring to, Member No, I'm asking, is he referring to all the risk of key risk? I see it, but
Yes,
maybe it's
yes, Chair. Yes, Chair.
you're referring to all the risks.
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay. Thank you. Member Lecker, did you get the page?
I'm looking at it, Chair.
Okay, I'm going to give the department just to address the risks. And then if Member Lecker find the page, we'll get back to her. HD, over to you.
Chair, according to my notes, I have no questions now from Member Licker. Okay, I mean, on both those two things, she couldn't refer me to a page number, so I don't actually know, exactly what the issue is. But we'll wait for Member Licker to come back. So there's only one question from Member Petrus, and that question relates to page 121 and 122. What 121 does, it sets out our GovCom activities, what we've done as a GovCom. Page 120 sets out the people that are members of the GovCom. It's generally our program managers. And you can see, Chair, that generally all of us attend all our GovCom discussions because that is key. And then during the year, we have identified certain risks. And these risks emanates obviously from our provincial risk plan that's put together by this team, particularly within the corporate governance space. There's about 8 bullets that we indicate that we have done and that we've considered and that we've addressed during the year. And it is really around those things that sits in our space. It's around the networks and the systems. It's about our ICT security. It's the issue around employee well-being that we've addressed. We also take responsibility for all matters around safeguarding information in line with POPIA requirements. And then the issue that Premier spoke about earlier is our responsibility in relation to improving governance across the Western Cape government as an entire system. And then also the issue around value for ICT spend. The risk around broadband 1.0, moving to broadband 2.0, that's been mitigated because we have awarded the contract. Then on page 122, we set out the transversal risk of Western Cape government. These are presented on a quarterly basis, to Cabinet. We also put together a governance quarterly report that is discussed at the Cabinet level. And there we talk about, the transversal risk that we face as a government around the fiscal environment, the economy, issues within the climate space, and then obviously the energy crisis, which we've directly are driving, and also, some of the mitigation matters that we've put in there. And then, the issue around uncertainty, particularly within the different trade environments, and then all the matters around tariffs and how all of these impact, on the province. And then we go further, Chair, by actually indicating how we manage it, and that's set out on page 122. And we use our GovCom. We've got an ERM policy and strategy. And if you look at the matters that we discussed at the GovCom, that deals with the risk in the department. So whether it's on the performance side, the risk that's obviously, that sits under our control, and our risk team also engages with each of our respective program managers. So I think from a risk perspective, I have no issue, and I'm comfortable that we are managing all the risks that face this department. Thanks.
Member Lecker, you got a question, Member Bosman? Okay, I'll give Member. I don't hear Member Lecker. Did she leave? I think Member Lecker left. So we're just going to move on to Member Walters and then Member Bosman. Member Walters?
Yeah, Chair, I suspect it might be related to Member Lecker's question. It's on page 139, and might be the page she's looking for. I just want to, if you look at page 139, summary of work done by the AIF during the reporting period, there's the second last bullet point. 32 actions were due for implementation within this reporting period. All actions were implemented, which is commendable. Then the implementation rate of the previous year's follow-ups was 60%. Now, I'm just assuming there it's a comparative statement to the previous year. I want to be sure that I understand that. And then you refer to 2 common themes identified in the engagements conducted in the Department of the Premier. There's the words which we didn't see often in this report was not effectively executed. If you can perhaps expand on that. It sounds like there is that sort of transversal role there. There's hiccups there. And then also in terms of the reliability of the sources of data that you're referring to now, part of the strategy of the Premier's department is having a data-driven and empirically driven department. So I understand the importance of this in your report, reason why it's highlighted, but perhaps if you can just expand what the actual data problems, correlation or data comparative problems, whatever the case is, what that is. Page 139.
Bosman?
Thank you very much, Chair. Mine is also on risk management and strategic alignment. And just for reference, those are pages 118 to 122. I think it's also pages 133 to 134. Just on the effectiveness of risk governance and the operations of GovCom. The committee, the way I understand it, was established to assist the accounting officer, but they only met 3 times during the reporting period. I wasn't on this committee last year. I just want to ask, is that fewer meetings than last year? And also with fewer meetings happening, were there fewer risks identified, A? And did that have an impact on key risks, specifically around the Western Cape government's ICT security infrastructure? And also the report mentioned there's been an increased strain on employee well-being. I'm just trying to understand how all of this links to the greater Western Cape on wellness strategy as well. Because this is a department that's got, I think, it's one of the smaller departments next to Provincial Treasury, but it does quite a bit in terms of coordinating across the government. And we heard earlier from the AG that it still has to spend a lot of its time following up with national departments to get clarity on national directives. So I just wanted to get some details in terms of whether that risk, specifically around the strain placed on Western Cape government employees employed in the Department of the Premier and their well-being is taken into account, and perhaps that risk should be flagged slightly higher on GovCom, because no matter how many computer systems you have, you still need people to operate and to use brain power to do the work. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, I was just informed that Member Lekker's got connectivity problems, so she will not ask the question. So HOD, I'm handing over to you. And maybe you can chip in whenever you need to. Thank you.
Chair, and the last question that's been asked by the Chief, I'm also going to ask Louise maybe to add. I mean, the matters that relates to DPSA, we're quite aware of it. And in fact, some of the proposals that they are making at the moment, and I mean, we've raised this matter with AXA during the audit, we believe is highly inefficient. So I'm going to give you one example. The one example is around people that make applications in this government for jobs. And then the directive now require that we now need to make printouts out of all these applications. And then the committees need to look at that. So there needs to be a hard copy application. Now, this government has moved away from hard copy application to e-recruitment years ago. And we've seen the benefit. I mean, our systems have been audited. There's no issue in the system. We don't have any traces, where we're missing stuff, etc., etc. But, DPSA says they want us to make copies and stuff like that. So what we do is when we disagree, then I would write a DG letter saying basically to them that we understand what you want to achieve, but please come down, audit our system and tell us, are there any inefficiencies in our system that do not comply to what you require? Now, there are 3 matters like that. I think the one issue is around the professionalization. The one issue is around, obviously, hard copy applications. And Louise knows also, Louise can talk about the other matter. But we have written to them, and we're basically waiting for a reply from the TPSA on some of those matters. And we are always open, Chair. We believe also if there is a directive, for complying to certain things, we don't just say no. We look at whether it is practically possible to do, whether we have better ways of doing it. And in fact, sometimes directives come from the DPSA that actually helps us to improve our own system. And then we'd implement it. But if directives come down that will take us backwards, we will then also take it up with them equally and say, we do not believe this is the best system. And in fact, Louise can tell you that we are also sharing some of our best practices, in that space. So that's the issue on the directives. And we have noted that matter also in our management report that's been issued by AXA, and we've provided an appropriate management response, for that. And we will use this year, obviously, to unpack some of the stuff and to work on it. But on those three matters, we are confident that we cannot take this government forward, particularly backwards, particularly if we believe that innovation is one of the values of this government. And we want to also deal, with basically automating many of our manual processes in the system. And Louise and her team has really been doing good work in that particular space. On the issue of risk, the issue of employee well-being, mental well-being on our staff, it is something that is affecting the system. And Chair, I can indicate to you that we have regular discussions at PTM. In fact, yesterday we discussed the issue of employee well-being at PTM level, and Louise and the team have indicated that they will come back to the next PTM meeting. They've got all the analytics about how the different stresses on the work environment, the different requirements on the work environment is actually working negatively on employee well-being in the work environment, and that then lead in many cases to mental well-being issues, and it impacts on people's ability to attend to their work environment and actually to be on task when they need to do the stuff. So there's a lot of pressure at the moment on particularly our HR team. And the HR team, as I've indicated, we provide service to 11 of 13 of the departments, but similar trends are coming through within the health and education environment, because Louise obviously deals with that space. So that is why we've actually elevated the issue around employee well-being as a transversal risk across the entire system. So it's not only .P, but if you look at the entire Western Cape government, we believe that that is something that needs to be dealt particularly in that space. And then to the question of member Walters on what's it, page 138 and 139 on the issue of implementation of the work that was done by our internal audit team. Those two common themes that's been highlighted. In fact, corrective actions have already been put in place, and in fact they confirmed that all those comments have already been implemented. The matter really relates to the quality of data, and we believe that, and we spoke about it early on, our approach to AI, our approach to data, our approach to data governance, and as we all know it here, data is the future, and companies that will get ahead will be those companies that have got access to data, and not just access to data, but the ability to interpret the data and to actually improve the bottom line. For the public service, it's nothing different. Our bottom line is service delivery. And in fact, the more data you have and your ability to interpret those data and superimpose it on your delivery area, that will place you in a position where you can improve your services. So we're quite strict, Member Walters, on the kind of data that we are using. So in some of our documentation, where we do certain analysis, like when you do research, sometimes you would access data, you would Google, and you'd see here's a data source. It tells you a story, but it's not necessarily from a source that is credible or reliable, but it tells you a story. So you can follow the storyline, but when you have to cite, your source, and you have to use that data so that your information can be credible and tested, and it can withstand any sort of attack from outside. Technically, we do not want to make use of grey data. We call it grey data sources in some of our publication, in some of our documents, and all of that. And the work that internal audit have done was basically to say, when you use information in putting these things, be aware of your data sources, make sure that they are credible, make sure that they are not grey, and make sure actually that it can withstand any external scrutiny. So if we say unemployment sits at 22% in the province, and you ask us, so where did you get that from? It can't just be from a Google search. It must be from a credible source. So those two bullets related to that, but those matters have been dealt with, and as part of our delivery agenda and our data governance policy and our data governance frameworks that's already been approved by Cabinet, that matter has been taken care of. And then the last question, before I'll ask Louise to come in, was on the issue of GovCom. I think that question was asked by the Chief Whip. We normally, in terms of our policy, meet 4 times a year. But what happened last time, Chief Whip, is that we changed the formation of the different audit committees. So in this province, I mean, unlike in other spaces, you would not see a social cluster audit committee. You would not see an economic cluster audit committee. We've aligned our audit committees to our 4 strategies. So you will have an audit committee dealing with growth for jobs. All the departments that sits underneath it will report into that committee, because we said to the audit committee, we do not want them to just do normal compliance stuff. We actually want to move them to start to test us on, are we achieving the impact? Are we making a difference? And stuff like that. And therefore, as a first step, we were changing the names, but a lot of the contracts have also come to an end for the different audit committees. And what we normally do as a department, we align our GovCom meetings to happen before we engage the audit committee. So the 3 meetings that we had was really just around timing and alignment, but it didn't take away from any of the quality of the kind of discussions and information that we've presented. I mean, you can see our audit committee report. There are literally no issues there. So it was really just alignment. And from this year onwards, we will go back to the normal quarterly stuff because the system is running. Louise, you want to add just on that DPSA stuff?
Okay, in terms of the DPSA, we received the following. The one is the selection committees must be 4 members and not 3. But if you look at the public service regulations, it indicates 3. So we wrote to DPSA and just asked clarity regarding that, but we implemented the 4 members on the selection committee. Secondly was the pre-entry integrity assessments. Now, DPSA indicated to us they will provide an integrity assessment for SMS members 1 April next year. What we've done for the interim now is to include integrity question in the interview process. And then also we are in the process of procuring an integrity assessment for salary levels 9 to 12 in our Provincial Assessment Centre. The e-recruit system, which the DG refers to, this director from DPSA wants us to do manual applications as well as online applications. We're already 10 years on online applications for salary levels 5 upwards. We've got a manual set system for salary level 1 to 4. So we're not prepared to go back. And we've drafted a letter for DPSA, DG to DG, requesting them to indicate where there's a problem with our e-recruit system. And then the other one is induction must be concluded within 6 months of appointment, departmental induction. We're drafting a circular from the DG to all HODs because the responsibility is with them to ensure that departmental induction happens within the first 6 months. And that letter will go out within this quarter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of our responses.
Members, Member Bosman, is there a follow-up? Member Bosman?
Yes, Chairperson. I just want to follow up on the comments made by Ms. Esterhuizen now. Maybe if we can get an idea of how long the period is that you've been waiting for follow-up from the DPSA. So how long does it take them to respond? I know in government, you with national government departments, the same with us in the NCOP, you have to engage in this pen pal letter writing competition because the letters have to be written. And then did I hear correctly that the National Department of Public Service and Administration wants to have developed or in the process of developing a pre-entry integrity assessment that provinces must follow and give every single employee at a certain level? Were the province asked for input on the types of questions, or have they taken into account the assessments that the Western Cape government's already doing? Perhaps, Chair, those are my 2 follow-ups.
Thank you very much. Any other follow-ups? Member Lecker, I see you back. Member Lecker?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm back. I'm struggling with the internet access here at home, but I want to sincerely apologize. I was going to make a reference to pages 118 to 120. But my second one, Chair, on the feedback that has been given around the manual and online application. I just want to check, since we're 10 years into the system on online application, I want to check in terms of the the percentage or the amount of applications that the departments received, which are manually, can we give an indication as to how, is it much or is it just minimal? Is there a thinking that maybe there is no necessity for the manual applications because we're receiving a particular percentage on online applications? And then lastly, around the issues of the induction, what has been the previous timelines within the departments on how soon or how quick can the inductions be conducted once the people have been appointed? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. Just to add on to the online applications and the manual applications, are you sure nobody is disadvantaged? That people don't have access, or how do you determine that nobody's disadvantaged? That's open for everybody. Because that is what was mentioned. So I just want to make sure that nobody in a rural area or something that is disadvantaged when they apply for a vacancy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Louise, will you respond to all of that?
Chair, in terms of waiting time for DPSA, it's about 2 to 3 months. That's our average waiting time for DPSA. Integrity assessment, the assessment tool that they are developing, DPSA, is for SMS, and we will use it with our recruitment and selection process. So it will be added to the current SMS test battery that's being used. And no, we haven't provided any input. DPSA has got that responsibility. We've got our own provincial assessment centre in the province for salary levels 9 to 12, and there we procure our own integrity assessment for those levels. Just in terms of the manual processes, it's absolutely minimum. We get about 3,000 to 5,000 applications for clerk online, because you can use your phone also to apply. So your smartphone, any smartphone, you can apply. So we don't find that we have a problem with applications. We previously had a problem with people that were blind, but that was also sorted out. So even if you're blind, you can still apply on the system. So there's no challenges. We look at the numbers of applications we receive, not at all. And then in terms of induction, there's 2 types of induction. The first is departmental induction. That's what the departments are responsible. So when you enter into your job, your supervisor inducts you in terms of the environment. And the second part is induction that we do at PTI. And that is provided on an annual basis, 2 to 3 times a year. There's induction. So yes, so that's being provided, but the challenge the Auditor General indicated was departmental induction. So it's that induction when you enter into your workplace, must be done within the first 6 months.
So that deals with that section, governance. We're moving over to PFMA compliance, 194 to 205. Members, over to you for questions. Member Lecker, over to you.
Legacy hand, Chair.
Okay. Members, just my one is 197, and that is the details of irregular expenditure under assessment. That is the amount, and there's an asterisk there. If we can just get more explanation on that. Members, over to you. Nothing? DG, over to you.
Chair, that matter just deals with irregular expenditure that was under assessment in this year, 24-25, to the amount of, 1.47. I mean, Driekus, you want to maybe give some more detail on that?
Yes, Chair, thank you. There are 12 matters. Various matters, the largest of which is 684,000. There's 524,000, and then the smallest is 499 rand. It's all matters related to approval not being obtained from the delegated authority to appoint a service provider. There's non-compliance with procurement prescripts. The contract expires, the service continues, that is irregular. Now, this entire list is in fact under assessment. It doesn't mean it will be confirmed irregular. It's just on the radar. We're working on it, investigating it. If we find that it complies with the definition, then it will be confirmed irregular and will then go the process. So this is really what's in the cupboard at this point. But there's even non-compliance to cost containment. So do we have certain thresholds, and in certain circumstances, maybe a slight overreach, and then we would identify that through internal control and put it into the assessment process. Chair, that's the detail.
Thank you very much. Member Lekker?
Am I audible, Chair?
We couldn't hear you. I can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Okay. Thank you, Chairperson. Just on that one, I think it's on page from 200 to 203 where it says no irregular expenditure. Now, with the explanation that we just received now of these minimal amounts, I want to understand, Chair, if there was no approval obtained, what would then be a consequence management process in such a case? Because clearly there should be something. If an approval was not obtained, what would have been a reason for a go-ahead from whoever that went ahead without any approval? But also, Chair, also this talks to maybe if we can reflect properly on the use and cost effectiveness of such amounts, because 684,000 is quite a huge amount. But what processes are they, and can we be given information once such an investigation, as it has been alluded to, has been completed? Thank you, Chair.
I just want to ask another question before you answer, DG. It's 199, the disciplinary steps taken here. Final written warning, that paragraph there, and then page 200, we have some issues on page 200, B, C, and D. If you can just elaborate on that as well. Thank you. Members, is there any other questions? Member Bosman?
Chair, if I could just ask on page 153, in terms of the personnel expenditure in core governance program, program 6, legal services, reported there 94.3% of its expenditure is dedicated to personnel. And then program 5, corporate assurance, 89.2% is also linked to sort of paying for the people that's working there. So that's quite a large amount of money invested in paying people already. But there's quite a bit of underspending in terms of staff exiting those posts, and the slow filling of vacancies. And I know the answer is going to come back that we have to wait for the DPSA regulations in terms of advertising. But what are some of the immediate management interventions that are currently being put in place? Because although sort of people leave, there are others there that are currently filling the gap. And again, it comes back to my previous sort of point around the strain that we're placing on the employees within the department. So what are some of those management interventions that has been implemented to make sure that both legal services and corporate assurances are able to sort of still meet their targets, because the targets are still being met, even though there are fewer people? And also, maybe if those challenges, those interventions can be broken down into what's being done in terms of changing the way we recruit so that people have a clearer expectation of what's happening, and also what's happening to work on a retention policy, because we know that many people working in this government gets poached by the private sector. So what are some of the incentives, perhaps non-financial, that is being put in place to make sure that people want to stay in the Western Cape government, not just because they want to do good and work in the public service delivering for citizens, but also that they're still able to feel that there are benefits beyond just monetary compensation, because we do know that the DG is going to say there's a limit on the amount of money that this Parliament appropriates to this department.
I was going to throw in that I think the department is losing a lot to municipalities because municipalities pay more. You train the people and they go do the work. So I know when we engaged last year Provincial Treasury, they said it's not all about money. You know, it's the environment, it's other things that you can keep people employed here at the province. Maybe, you know, if there's any advantages that you can, or any pluses that you can give us. It's not all about money, but it's also the environment that you work in. Over to you, DG.
Chair, thank you very much. I'm going to respond to the stuff, and then I'm going to ask Louise first just to talk about, because this is a transversal matter, you know, as how we go about to improve our recruitment processes. What is it that we do, you know, to look at the retention, and also obviously around by building the capability of the state and for some of our employees also, you know, to grow in the system. So if Louise can just respond on that matter through a transversal lens. So Chair, the question that's been asked by Member Lecker is that as the CFO explained, you know, you've got basically two components. So you've got irregular expenditure that can be, or let's call it irregular expenditure, not yet irregular, but let's call it something has gone wrong and somebody, you know, have identified. And remember, we've got internal control and all of that in the system. So if a potential irregular expenditure is identified, and then we will, as a department, will do an investigation into that. It's generally the internal control component. And as Trick has said, there's about 12 cases or so that amounts to 1.4 million. But remember, there's 1.4 million on a 2.1 billion rand budget. And it's really small matters, but we compare what has happened to what the policy environment actually dictates. And only once the assessment or once the investigation is done, they would put together a report, and then that report would come via the CFO and myself to either, you know, deal with the irregular expenditure if there's irregularity. If it's not irregularity, then you actually just place it under expenditure, so there's no issue. And then there are different ways to deal with irregular expenditure, particularly, you know, when you take it through a condonation process. Then, Chair, there are different things that we do, because the question was really about what are we doing about it. You know, you've got different mechanisms of instituting disciplinary steps, because some irregular expenditure can happen by human error. Then there can be some irregular expenditure that is a result of either fraudulent activity, and in that case you can opt also to take, you know, criminal steps against officials if there are sufficient proof. And then obviously, Chair, when you deal with stuff where there's been human errors, depending on the quantum, depending on what has happened, depending on the outcome of the investigation, you deal with it through the normal disciplinary process. So you can call the person in, talk about what has happened, identify training opportunities, because it's about corrective action, and particularly when mistakes have been made. Or you can provide the person with a warning letter. You go through a process, but it's all about corrective actions. You know, and we will always look at, you know, the punishment must fit the crime, if I can use that kind of word. But if people have made a genuine mistake, one must actually correct it, and is it to potentially, you know, providing some training and personnel building and stuff like that. Because in a system like this, and we always say to our team, you know, if you want to be innovative, you know, sometimes mistakes creep in, but as a manager, you know, you need to look at what has happened and obviously use your judgment and also the facts on the table to deal with it in an appropriate manner. On the issues of underspending, particularly in Program 6 and Program 5, that's primarily because of staff exits. So our numbers indicates in legal services under advisory and governance services an amount of 750 million. That's not even a full year salary for one legal advisor. And then under litigation or legislation, there's an amount 758, and the other amount is 165,000. And under Program 5, particularly within the internal audit space, and the Chief Whip is correct, you know, our internal auditors are also sometimes poached by our line departments. And, you know, it's about capacity. So you go there as an internal auditor, you do brilliant work, the department sees you, and then they poach you. and then you go work maybe in a governance environment in the department. This is generally something that happens across our entire system. We're also a training provider for many institutions, and it's also part of building the system. So one must actually determine what is the normal churn for any department. If it's 5% to 10%, what people will churn, they go to other areas, they build their careers and stuff like that. That's also good in some areas, but we are bleeding internally in terms of the number of hands that's available, because the amount of work that needs to be done actually goes into a different direction. And then obviously, Chair, if somebody exits the system, it sometimes take at least 3-4 months between the person resigning and the new person being recruited. So that's just generally how the system works. And as an team, this is something that we're continuously watching. We also have a budget committee in our department where we look at the number of positions filled, where posts become vacant, and we also assess, where certain units are under pressure. So, Louise, if you can maybe just deal with those two matters, like what are we doing transversely around retention and building capacity, and then also your own processes to improve recruitment.
Yes, in terms of retention, the one thing with retention that you need to give attention to is organizational culture. And we drive a very strong program in terms of organizational culture transversely within the Western Cape government. And our entry level is relatively low for such a big organization. So it's an indication that we're doing well on a culture level. What our problem is poaching of our staff, and the biggest poacher is the city of Cape Town. So we all of us have that problem. I even heard that health has got the same problem. So we need to live with that because we don't provide the same salaries as municipalities. In terms of recruitment, the first step is when a post is exit. When someone exits a post, the first step is to find out if there's budget to fill the post. That's the biggest thing that HODs needs to answer, is their budget to fill the post. Then after we've got that, the recruitment process goes smooth. The only challenge we have is with shortlisting, and that is managers that don't have time to do the shortlisting. But that is the panel's responsibility, so we can't take it away from them. But we've indicated in the people strategy, we want to look at AI in recruitment, and that's specifically something that we would like to pursue in the future. Thank you.
The questions on the disciplinary and the other page 199 and 200. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair, I'll get to those 2 pages. Just in terms of the consequence management, if there's gross negligence, then we will act from a disciplinary perspective. Mostly with irregular, there is value for money. It's not like the product was unnecessarily procured, or the contract that was not legally extended or allowed to lapse and then continued was still for an important service like wellness, for example. We also look at mala fide, intent. If somebody tells you, I will do it, and then apologize later, they will not last. Unfortunately, Chair, because that's not the attitude. And then, as I said, any losses, obviously, we look at that much more seriously. Just on 199 to 200, Chair, the asterisk at 1.2, there's a single and then a double. The single is simply a restatement of an opening balance. It's an old matter. And then the 2 asterisks is around a salary overpayment of an official that is no longer in the employ. And that was found to be a valid expense. After investigation, we found it was actually not a fruitless. And then if you go down, you'll see there's really nothing in the bottom column. On page 200, you'll note there's a note there that 18 cases makes up that 29,000. And those cases, the maximum is 3,840 rand and the minimum is a couple of hundred rand. So it's a number of cases. And that's just what we are assessing at the moment. We're looking at those. And then the 99 and the 35 lower down, that all relates to salary overpayments. Now, these are old salary overpayments, years ago. And what we've chosen to do is, since the AG raised it a year or 2 ago in this house, we decided to go into our salary overpayments and handle all of them as potential fruitless. It's the best way from a governance perspective. And as we get results, obviously, some we could recover, some we are unable to recover, and that gets written off. I think, Chair, that covers those 2 pages. Thanks.
So one is this the disciplinary steps taken? It's not yours. It's the disciplinary details of disciplinary or criminal steps taken on page 199 at the top. That was a service provider procurement process.
Chair, that is there is a current court case in this regard. It's running, but as for the internal officials who are still working here, for the procedural steps that they compromised, I mean, not knowingly. In other words, those things that might have, if it was tighter, might have assisted us not to have something like this. They were issued with a written warning letter. Thanks.
Premier?
Chair, maybe I can also just say, I mean, we say it year after year that we do bleed officials because the salaries are so different. I mean, if you just look at the top-notch salaries, an HOD of health or education, and the salary that they get, the responsibility of 30 billion rand budget and 30,000 staff members, etc. And then you look at an ED salary in the city, and it's like $1 million, $1.5 million more. And we can't compete with that. But that actually structurally should be fixed. But aside from that, it's about the culture. And I think that has been said. And that's really why we drive it so hard. Culture, values. Do you enjoy coming to work? If we can get that right, it's about that satisfaction. But it's hard to if somebody's got a few years left, they want to take that because it's about their pension. So it is a very, very difficult environment. And we need to actually think about how we tackle this, not only as a province, but as a country.
Thank you for that. I see Member Lekker. Member Peters, was your hand up? Is it down again? Member Lekker, is that the new hand?
Yeah. Chair, I see we jump around between the different ones.
Yours is a legacy.
I see hand on my.
Yeah, thank you. Member Peters?
It's fine, Chairperson.
Okay, then we're done with that section. We're going to our final section. That's financial information. That is from 206 to 276. Members, over to you for questions. Am I too fast for you?
Yes, you are, Chairperson. You are too fast.
Okay. Do you want to pose the first question? Do you have your page number?
My internet is slow and my gadget is not assisting either, Chair. So I'm turning from one page to another and my phone is taking long. Other members can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Member Lekker. Member Bosman.
Thank you very much, Chair. Not a question, but perhaps just a recommendation for Mr. Davids to note that perhaps members of the committees that are joining virtually can perhaps make use of one of the Department of the Premier's e-centres with a stable broadband connection.
Is there any other questions, members? I'm going to call it. I'm going to call the end, guys. I can't wait for people to look for pages. I think you must have your work ready. Member Walters, I said you're going to do the thank yous, but before you do the thank yous, I'm going to give the Premier and the HOD opportunity to close. And Premier, if they get the page numbers, they can post it to us. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to say thanks to the committee. Thanks for the opportunity to report to you. This is very much part of the process of, if you want to have good governance, we have our own processes, but this is one of the processes that we have to get right. And it's about holding us to account as well. And so I want to thank you for that. But again, I want to just say to the department, an outstanding result. You nitpick on some of these numbers, but at the end of the day, it's a small number compared to the overall and the role that they play not only in this department, but across the whole of government. And even the municipalities. I mean, you know, we meet with the municipalities, we bring the Auditor General in. Our teams are also definitely involved. You know, how do we get the whole province to be lifted? And so I want to say thanks to every individual here, but not only just here, those that are in the offices, making sure the work's still getting done while we are reporting. Thank you, Chair.
Julie?
Chair, from our side, I mean, I want to echo the words of the Premier. Thanks to you as Scoper. I think thanks to the Premier as our EA for the leadership, and then to an amazing team within the department, led by capable managers, each of the respective program managers. And as Premier said, you know, there's close to another 1,000 people, you know, everywhere in the province, trying to make things easier for the residents of this province. And I mean, we will continue to step up and to make sure that we deliver on the expectations. So once again, thank you to everyone.
Would you remember?
Well, thank you very much, Chair. In fact, can I compliment you on a lovely tradition, actually asking different members to do the thank you. I'm going to copy that in my committee, then people don't have to listen to my voice all the time. But let me just say from my side, I do think there's something special that is being implemented in the province. There is in fact, I sense a different style, a different model of governance that is busy emerging. It is a change management environment, and I think all the indicators that we've seen is of an organization that within very strict constraints is busy moving forward. It's not something that, because of the very nature of government, something that will work as quickly as it will in a private business. But I've noticed, and I've only been here a year, but last year compared to this year, you can see how step by step we are moving closer to where a very, very profoundly inspiring vision. And I think that's something that I recognize. Having said that, it's not entirely the responsibility of the department. It's not entirely the responsibility of the executive. It's also us as part of the oversight of the legislature that have a very important role to play to make sure that we keep you honest and keep you true to that particular vision. And yeah, I think what we saw here, and Chair, also with your leadership, I think I certainly saw a very good meeting and with lots of food for thought coming out of that. So thank you very much.
I will just ask if there's any members of the public I didn't see. We didn't get any notification. So thank you, Premiers. Thank you, HOD and department. The meeting.
Chair, can I just say, just on the members of the public, we hosted the Provincial Parliament this morning, hosted 59 second-year students from the University of the Western Cape who are all doing the Bachelor of Community Service. And they were here to analyze how well we ran the annual report process. They wanted to be at Scopa, but unfortunately they're dependent on university transport and had to get back into traffic before 3.
Thank you very much. We're going to adjourn till 15:15 to have there's some refreshments at the back. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.